First off, big thank you to Matthew for the great suggestion of the medieval Armenian capital of Ani. If you want to see a topic covered in the future, please leave a comment down below. I'll be covering another user suggestion for next week's edition of Abandoned History, my other series where I discuss overlooked historical figures and events. Thanks for tuning in, and let's hop right in. The ancient city of Ani sits in modern-day Turkey as a hollowed-out shell of what it once was. Its walls still stand, along with a few partial remains of churches. It was once a major fortress and served as the capital of the medieval Armenian Kingdom. What exactly happened to this once sprawling medieval metropolis with well over 100,000 inhabitants? Ani is situated between the Zagazgar Valley and the Akurian River in the Turkish province of Kars, right across the Armenian border. Ani has been mentioned as early as the 5th century AD. Armenian chroniclers during the time period described the city as a strong hilltop fortress. Ani was said to have been built by the ruling Byzantine-aligned Armenian Kamsarakan dynasty. From the 5th to 9th century, Ani remained little more than a small town attached to a strategic military position. In the early 9th century, the Bakratuni family purchased the regions of Arshuranik and Shirak, making them the new masters of the city of Ani. Interestingly, it is noted by Armenian sources that upon the purchase of Ani, that a flourishing agricultural industry had taken root outside of the fortress, and that multiple trade caravans regularly started passing through the city. The Bakratuni dynasty is an Armenian royal family who in the 8th and 9th centuries were essentially vassals of the various Arab Islamic caliphates. Despite being vassals, they were unwilling at best, and a total liability at worst. The Islamic rulers of the region actually showed preference for Bakratuni rulers, but the Bakratunis and the Armenian people would revolt frequently, and always at strategic moments. Due to family squabbles and shifting geopolitics in the region, the Bakratuni dynasty was not able to form a fully united front against Islamic forces until the 860s AD. In 862, the Bakratuni ruler Ashot I was named Prince of Princes and began attacking Arab positions. The attacks enjoyed some initial success, pushing the Arabs out of the Taik region of Armenia. Despite this, the Arabs by the mid-860s had halted the Armenian advance, and the conflict was quickly becoming a stalemate. The ascension of Basil I, the Macedonian, to the Byzantine throne in 867 created an opening for the Armenian Bakratuni dynasty. Shortly after taking the throne, Basil had inflicted several military defeats on the Arabs, resulting in the caliphate having a looser grip over Armenia. Ashot then appealed to Basil for recognition of legitimacy and military aid against the Arabs. Emperor Basil I granted Ashot's requests. In exchange, Ashot was to swear loyalty to the empire, and the Armenian Apostolic Church was forced to make concessions to the Eastern Orthodox Church. For 2 decades, until the 880s, Armenia was essentially a vassal state of the Byzantine Empire. In 884, Armenia finally attained independence. Ironically, it would be the intelligent diplomacy of the Arabs that would win the Armenians' independence from the Byzantines. Caliph al-Mu'tamid wanted to pull the Armenians out of the Byzantine sphere of influence to alter the balance of power. To do this, he sent the Armenian prince Ashot a crown and proclaimed him as a king. Ashot accepted the distinction, and Basil I of the Byzantines then sent a crown of his own, and congratulations to the new king of Armenia. This made Ashot the first king of Armenia since 428 AD, 400 years earlier. Despite the Arabs playing a strong diplomatic game, the Armenians still decided to side with the Byzantines after becoming an independent kingdom. Shortly after being proclaimed king, Ashot concluded a military alliance with Basil I. Nonetheless, the Arabs still succeeded in pulling Armenia out of client state status. Ashot would rule until 890, when he would be succeeded by his son Sambat I. Ani would continue to serve as an important regional town and fortress until the middle of the 10th century. In 961, King Ashot III would move the capital of his kingdom from Kars to Ani, and this move would serve as the catalyst for Ani's rise. Under the reign of Sambat II, Ani would have tremendous growth. It is believed that during Sambat's reign, Ani had somewhere between 50,000 and 90,000 inhabitants. In 992, the Armenian Church would move the seat of its bishop to Ani, which would spur the construction of countless churches. By the beginning of the 1000s AD, Ani would have a population of well over 100,000 individuals. The city had massive stone walls constructed around the original fortress and town as a whole. It also became the site of the Bakratuni Royal Mausoleum, adding to its grand architecture. The city allegedly had 1,000 churches built within its limits. Despite this fantastical claim, only about 93 churches or chapels have been found within the city through excavations. This is still obviously a large amount, and archaeologists believe there are countless more to find. It is believed that Ani reached its apex in power, economic prosperity, and population during the reign of Gagik I from 989 to 1020 AD. Unfortunately, following the death of King Gagik, Ani would have a precipitous decline. The kingdom of Armenia would be divided by Gagik's two sons, who would wage a civil war over the kingdom. Due to the civil war, the kingdom of Armenia was exposed. One of the brothers, Sambat III, declared Byzantine Emperor Basil II as his heir to discourage the Byzantines from attacking the Armenian kingdom. Ultimately, this was a long-term blunder. Although it did protect Armenia during Sambat III's lifetime, as soon as he died, the Byzantines invaded. Byzantine Emperor Michael IV the Paphlagonian believed he was entitled to the lands of Sambat III. The new Armenian king, Gagik II, opposed this obviously, and successfully repulsed multiple Byzantine invasions. Despite Gagik's initial success, Ani, like many other Armenian cities, had sympathies and loyalties to the Byzantines. So in 1046, the people of the city flung open the gates for the approaching Byzantine army, and the Armenian king Gagik, seeing the writing on the wall, agreed to a meeting with the Byzantine emperor. There never was a meeting. When Gagik II arrived in Constantinople, he was immediately detained and most of his kingdom was annexed. The people of Ani then asked the emperor for a Byzantine governor and integration into the empire, both of which were accepted. The now former king Gagik II was granted a pension, mansions, and some noble titles in Anatolia in exchange for his kingdom. He eventually came to run the Byzantine theme of Charjanon, and became an advocate for Armenian religious rights in the empire. As governor of the local theme, Gagik eventually got into a spat with his local bishop and opted to torture and kill the holy man. Byzantine governors eventually tracked Gagik down in 1079 and ordered him tortured, beaten, mutilated, and killed. The governors then displayed Gagik's corpse on the city walls, and shortly thereafter, Gagik's son and grandson were found, quote-unquote, mysteriously dead from poison. A truly Byzantine end for a blunderous Byzantine bureaucrat. Under Byzantine rule, life in Ani continued business as usual, and the city's population continued to remain at high levels. In 1064, about 20 years after the Byzantine takeover of the city faced its biggest threat, the invasion of the Seljuk Turks. In 1064, the Seljuks captured Ani after a short siege, with relatively few casualties for the Turks. The Seljuks, upon taking the city, decided to massacre over 50% of the population. According to Turkish historian Sit ibn al-Jazi, the remaining 50,000 inhabitants were taken prisoner and most likely enslaved. Al-Jazi described the scene of the city of Ani after the siege as, quote, one filled from one end to the other with bodies of the slain, and the bodies of the slain had become a road. He also stated that, quote, children were ravished from the embraces of their mothers and mercilessly hurled against rocks, while mothers drenched themselves with tears and blood. Shortly after the devastating defeat of the Byzantine army at Manzikert in 1071, the Turks sold Ani to the Kurdish Shaddadid dynasty. Ani under the Shaddadids would essentially become a war zone between them and the Kingdom of Georgia. Between 1071 and 1199, the city would change hands 5 times, being subjected to violent, economically draining sieges each time. It would finally end up under the control of the Christian Kingdom of Georgia in 1199. From there, it would be continued to be ruled by Georgian nobility until 1360. Ani would regain much of its population and significance under Georgian rule, but it would never quite reach its previous population heights. In 1236, the Mongols would capture Ani, sack the city, and massacre its population again. Then the Mongols returned the city to the local Georgian nobles who ruled it. This 1236 sacking essentially marked the killing blow to Ani. To make matters worse, in 1319, the area was struck by a devastating earthquake, severely damaging the city walls. Following this, it never became a major city again, and it continued to degenerate. By 1390, Ani would fall to the Turkish Karakonlu, and then to the Timurid Empire in 1380. Another Turkish confederation at Konlu captured the city in 1430 and made it their capital until the 1440s. In 1441, the Armenian Church finally transferred the seat of its bishop to Yerevan, removing the final major institutional presence in the city. From there, the Persian Safavids briefly ruled the disheveled city until it went under Ottoman control in 1579. By the time of Ottoman control, only a small town existed deep inside the abandoned walls and structures of the city. The city became fully abandoned in 1735 when the last Armenian monks left Ani's monasteries. Interest in Ani would be sparked up again in the first half of the 19th century, where multiple European archaeologists began digs on the site. One of the most significant excavations took place in 1905 to 1906. Throughout the 20th century, Ani served as a war zone between Turks, Armenians, and Russians, and largely still is today. It currently sits in a Turkish military zone along the closed Turkish-Armenian border. The area has been abused and vandalized by Turkish nationalists throughout the 20th century, but luckily in 2001 the World Monuments Fund has announced that the Turkish government was going to be working with them to help preserve some churches in the area. Turkey's government continues to work with international organizations in the preservation of Ani. The site has greatly boosted tourism to the region, and in 2016, Turkey successfully applied for Ani to be added to UNESCO's World Heritage Site list. I hope this video shed some light on the beautiful Armenian cultural center of Ani, and that the history community can continue to restore and preserve this important piece of culture and history. Hey guys, please check the description down below for my brand new Facebook link and drop a like and a follow. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have a suggestion for what I should do next, leave it in the comment section below.